So what's up, guys? Today we are talking about a new philosophy I have come up with. It's called I call it Chud, and the reason is pretty interesting. Um, so like okay, Chud, the philosophy argues that it, oppression itself, structural oppression, is the act of stripping agency, responsibility, and accountability from a person, right? So it's basically a form of infantilization in any context, really. And you notice this a lot. Um, this is actually something like um, you notice this a lot in like right wing circles. Obviously, um, the narrative of the right wing philosophy is obviously that yes, human differences are massive, they are unreconcilable, and we need a structured hierarchy to of like rights and responsibilities to work this out. The left opposes this. The left denies fundamental differences between groups and therefore argues that we are all equal, so we should have equal rights. Now, Chud rejects this entire premise in its entirety. Chud argues that yes, fundamental differences are real, they are undeniable, that different races and different cultures and even the different genders have some fundamental differences which are basically inborn, that they're fundamental, they're intrinsic, they can't be overcome, but they should not be used as a reference point for power. Um, the actual notion of chart work is actually fairly egalitarian. This might surprise some people. Like so far, I've mostly catered to my Chuddy audience, right? I've said a lot of right wing things. So you may be surprised that I'm actually somewhat in favor of equality. I believe that all groups and individuals have a right to freedom of choice, to independence, to the right to responsibility and accountability, and to the right of continued existence. So this obviously extends to ethnic groups. So the current left-wing narrative that white people should go extinct obviously doesn't sit right with me, mostly because I'm a white person. I do not expect any sympathy from other races. Like, okay, I get it. We are not. This is the thing. I consider other races my equals, obviously, but I do not necessarily consider them my friends. Uh, we are rivals on this planet. We are fighting for control over this planet, and I do not blame like have you heard about like I do not really blame Muslims for coming here. Like leftists would. This is actually an incredibly dangerous tendency that specifically white people have. White people are by far the most pathological race in human history. And I say this as a white person. I say that our pathology is that every white person, regardless of left or right, has this foundational belief that they are so enlightened, so civilized, so above everyone else, that all other races and groups are basically like children that are in need of being civilized, of being protected. Um, the immigration policy is a big part of this. Leftists do not really like they think like migrants are like poor refugees that are coming here and their culture is a bit different, but we can integrate them, we can civilize them, right? This is I do not agree with this at all. um, the Muslim migrants currently flooding Europe know what they're doing. They are responsible adults just like us. They see this. They see themselves as soldiers. They see themselves as soldiers in a war, in an ethnic war, to take over Europe and exterminate us, right? And this is horrible for us, but this is not necessarily a moral condemnation of them. We could and should do the same to them. We don't because of our pathology. We cannot acknowledge that they are soldiers and the atrocities that migrants, Muslim migrants in particular, are committing in Europe look like war crimes because that's exactly what they are. Um, and like, for example, do you know that China has biological weapons that they have engineered specifically to target white people, right? They see this very clearly, very lucidly as a race war, a global race war that will continue until only one race is left. White people have the issue that we simply are incapable, we are so complacent, we are incapable of acknowledging the fact that other races are equals, and they see this as a war. They see us as enemies that they need to kill. And we do not respect them in that way, and that is a fundamental weakness. This is the reason we are losing. We should, by all means, not lose. We have we have the most advanced technology. We have the most advanced industry. We have the culture best accustomed to Western civilization, to modern industrial civilization. We have our psychology itself, our fairly average IQ, our capability to plan towards the future, things that other races sometimes simply do not have. Like black people, they evolved in an environment with no seasons. They have never had the evolutionary need to develop long-term planning. This is a fact of life, right? They cannot do this. This isn't a condemnation of them, especially not a moral one. They are perfectly adapted to life in Africa. Um, they are not inferior to us. The issue is the issue is both the right wing and the left wing, the right and the right left, they both are incapable of seeing other races as our equals, as rivals that are to be respected. Um, and this is why we're losing. This is why we're losing ground. This is why we're falling back. This is why we are not building industry while China is overtaking every single country in Europe and North America. And this in a couple of decades. This is why countries like India, and yeah, I get the memes. Indians are like weird and they're a bit nasty, and I get that their culture is totally alien to us. Not as alien as you think, right? Indians are like culturally and historically closer to Germans than to Arabs. So, but India has been a colony of foreign powers for 500 years. They've only been free for like a couple decades, and they're already basically a great power in their region that can measure up to China. They have rebuilt in an immensely quick time, and that's something we should respect. That's objectively impressive, regardless of what we think of their culture. Their civilization is extraordinarily resilient, and we should really take them seriously. So, my point is again, and my point is again, equality doesn't necessarily negate um, difference. Both left and right argue from the premise that equality is only justified among people who are equal, but we are not equal. Yeah, the right wing acknowledges this, but they falsely assume that there's a hierarchy there. They believe that because we are equal, because we are different, because we are incredibly different, we have barely anything in common except sentience, um, that necessarily our group is the superior one. But this leaves us a massive disadvantage because we're underestimating our neighbors. The left, again, is similarly pathological in the terms that they have this white savior complex where they feel responsible for the actions of ancestors and think they need to, in a very patronizing manner, uplift all the races around them. They do not. They can take care of their own shit, right? They do not need your help. Okay, dear leftists, other races, other minorities do not need your help. Keep to yourself. You're going to get burned this way because other people will see you trying to help and they are seeing someone who thinks themselves superior and they think you are a child, right? They hate that. This is why, despite all the privileges and protections and institutional benefits that minorities get in Western countries, they still hate us because all of these actions remind them that you do not respect them, that you think that they are children in need of help, in need of guidance. They hate that. They are adults. They are responsible adults. They know what they're doing. They are free to choose. They hate the idea of being patronized like that. So just my advice for leftists is stick to yourself. Try to help white people because other races do not want your help. They do not want your help. They do not appreciate your help. They see your help as basically another form of oppression, and it is. It is. So same thing with feminism, right? I would not consider myself a feminist because I'm male and like feminism is kind of like something women are. That's like the conceptions. I subscribe to the ideas mostly, but I'm not a feminist because I'm a guy, right? But not a conventional one. I refuse to see women as passive objects, as victims of oppression. They are not. They are equals to us. They are different. They have different psychology to men. They think differently. They feel differently. They have different capabilities. That is all true. This does not justify a hierarchy in any way. Um, the best thing you can do is to treat them as responsible adults. And this also implies that you have to keep them to accountability when they're doing badly, right? Um, any minority in society that is put into this role of like a passive thing that is oppressed or helped is not free. Um, in the patriarchy, the men that beat women and control women and abuse women and rape women, they are just the same as the self-described feminists that want to put women on a pedestal and want to create new protections for them and special laws to guide to protect them from the severity of the world. That is also patriarchy. That is also oppression, because that still strips women of agency. And the only way for true emancipation, for true liberation, for women, for other countries, for other cultures, for other races, is to treat everyone as a responsible adult with agency, not an object to be acted upon, but a subject that acts upon the world. And this extends to the people that are oppressed themselves, because they are not, they, in many cases, like for example, um, in many cases they see themselves in that way. They self infantilize in that way. For example, black people in America. They have a horrible history, right? They have been kidnapped, betrayed by their own people in Africa, sold to the Americans, where they have been enslaved for hundreds of years. And even after being outwardly liberated, they were still basically under control of the white system, right? They were still a client race. They were still reliant on like the methods of reconstruction and special laws and civil rights laws. By the way, civil rights laws, some of the most oppressive shit ever. Like that is basically another form of slavery, right? Because if you are put in a special protected status, you are not free. You are not treated as an adult that can protect himself. You are treated as a vulnerable person, as a child. You are not, your agency, your freedom, your status as a subject that acts upon the world is not respected. You have been once again degraded to an object that is acted upon. You are reliant on other people to help you. You are not free. Okay, minorities. This is the thing. Minorities in the West are objectively privileged. They are objectively given more lenient sentences. They are objectively given more resources. They are objectively put in the hierarchy above like native people. But this doesn't mean they are not oppressed. This just means they are in a special status as a like a house Negro basically. Like that's what they are. That's what you are. Like if you think like the Vogue people that make the laws that they have your best interest in mind. No, they also have power over you. You are still a slave. You are just a house slave, right? Basically, you have a more comfortable life. You get away with more. Like you can commit crime and all of that, but you are still not free because freedom is not kind. Freedom is not pleasant. Freedom is cold and careless. Freedom can feel like oppression for many people, um, especially those that have been used to like a golden cage in which they're given everything. Freedom means that you're on your own, that nobody's coming to help you, that you have to make your own decisions. Freedom means being an adult. Now we are getting to like black people in America, right? They have a horrible history, and it kind of broke them. It didn't always have broken them. Like there were attempts at like proto Chadwick movements, like the Panthers maybe, like attempts by black communities to discover their own agency, to emancipate themselves in a way where they can see themselves as independent people that like discrimination and bigotry isn't going away. Chud work doesn't solve any of that. It just tells you that these are obstacles you have to overcome. These are external influences that don't have to turn you into a passive object. You are still a human. You are still a person with free will. Doesn't matter if you're like a white person with an IQ of 100 and like I don't know a lasting savior complex, or if you're a black person that hates being black secretly, that overcompensates with like uh, over hyped nationalism, but they know they have an IQ of 70. Again, this doesn't change that you are a human with the same rights and responsibilities as anyone else. Like there are also like retarded people who have good lives. Why do black people perform so poorly? Despite like it isn't IQ. Again, white retarded people live better lives. And this isn't just society or structurally, it's a part of the mentality. Because most retarded people do not consider themselves to be oppressed or helpless. They have not developed this learned helplessness that like blacks in America have learned. They have not learned that the system is going to push them down and it's best to just give up, keep living on food stamps in the projects, maybe join a gang or something. Like um, this is actually this is actually why I actually like hip hop, not as music but as a message. Early hip hop, not late hip hop. Modern hip hop is like the exact opposite. But early hip hop was actually pretty uh, chart work basically. It was like what was the message? It was the message like yes, you are in poverty. Life isn't fair. You are constantly being beaten down. Like the cops do not protect you, they do the opposite. They occasionally kill you if you look wrong because you maybe uh, remind them of some guy that just walked away that robbed a store or something. Like you have awful, awful environment. You have like life has fucked you deeply. Like I get that. I empathize with that. Um, I sympathize with that. But this doesn't mean you have to give up. You do not have to repeat the struggles that these singers, basically, these rappers, tell you about how to fall into crime and to drop out of school. No, you still can take some accountability, um, become a responsible adult, get a job, go back to school. Like that is a possibility. You can go back to school, get a good job, and live normally. That isn't white behavior. White behavior is like I explained it basically. It's a pathological savior complex that is so deeply ingrained that it's leading to our extinction. So being a functional person isn't about being white. It's about being an adult, and you can do that regardless of your like biological differences or like your social status or the fact that you are objectively being put down and marginalized and oppressed. Yeah, I get that. That doesn't change that it's your job to save yourself. Nobody else is gonna save yourself. Anyone who tells you that they're going to save yourself, anyone that's going to save you is just your new slave master. That's the thing. They have power over you. They decide your life. They decide your welfare. You cannot allow yourself to become decided upon, to become acted upon. You need to make your own decisions. That's the core premise, like of Chud work, right? Chud work is about is not is the premise is that the solution to oppression is not to fight bigotry or to fight discrimination. We can do all that, right? That's cool, but like um, the actual process of emancipation means to take accountability, to take actions, to take control of your own life, and to become a responsible adult, to own up to your own flaws, to accept the fact that life isn't fair, because life is never fair. Even like not marginalized people have completely different setups. Like uh, I can confirm to that. Like I've grown up in the European equivalent of the project, like in like the Khrushchevskas of Eastern Germany. My parents had never had a job. Um, we never had enough money. We didn't have regular meals or anything. But my mother, for example, still fought to get me on good, on good schools. I still dropped out eventually because partially because of the bullying. Because like if you're like the second poorest person in the entire school, you're like I wasn't bullied really, but I wasn't really cool. Right, I wasn't a part of the group, or at least I felt very isolated. And this combined with like bad grades and all of that led to me dropping out. But now, and I have spent years, maybe like almost a decade, unemployed on disability benefits, like a complete loser, right? I I still am a complete loser, but I don't plan on staying one. I do not blame the system. I do not blame the fact that people in East Germany are still treated by the rest of Germany as like some sort of quasi-Slavic barbarians that they annexed in the 90s, that they stripped us of our industry and kept us poor and maintained everyone in a state of permanent underclass. Like, I get that. I am basically part of a marginalized minority in that way, but I do not plan on staying in that place. I do not blame the environment I have been given for my own actions. I am going back to school in September. I am going to get a degree. I am going to go to university and I'm going to get a really good job. That is my plan, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it through. And you can do that too, right? You can do that too, regardless of if you're like a black guy in like the Bronx or something, or some even I don't know, even someone who has a really shitty life, like a slave in Pakistan or something. Like as responsible for your own choices, you can try your best to free yourself. You do not have to stay in this learned helplessness of this notion of oppression and structural um, um, disadvantages. Just accept it as a fact of life, right? Everyone, nobody, equality in this system isn't real. Like you are not going to be given the same chances as everyone else. You are going to have to fight so much more than anyone else to get where they are. That is true. The adult, mature response to that is, yeah, fuck that. I'm still going to try. And at the end, when I have done it, I'm going to end up stronger than anyone else around me because I have endured. That's my message, okay? This is like this compassionate message for like someone who's so obviously chat coded and extremist as me, right? But this is my message. This is my message to like women. This is my message to black people in America. This is my message to like the third world. Um, this is my message to like certain cultures. You do not have to stay in the place you are. Yes, life is unfair. Yes, you are not treated the same as everyone else. But you are a person with agency and freedom. You can make your own decisions. You are not an object. You are a subject of reality, and you shape the world around you. Not the world doesn't have to shape you. You do not have to give up. It's so fucking unfair, so cruel, so bleak. Actually, the the cards you have been given. I get that, but that's the cards you have been given, and the structure of oppression that's actually keeping you down is also in your head. It's the fact that people around you see you as an object, as a child, as lesser than them. It's the fact that you think that you see yourself as an object, as a child, as lesser than them, and you do not have to do that. Anyways, this has been all for today. Um, Goodbye, and yeah, anyone can be organic if they crawl towards the sunset with a knife in their mouth, right? Um, that's basically what it is. Just grow up, take some accountability. Yeah, life isn't fair. It's never going to be fair. You are always going to have it worse than everyone else, but you can still do it. You can still free yourself, make your own communities, build your own support systems, and create something good. And maybe the oppressive systems out there are going to burn it all down. You know what you do then? You do not give up. You do it again and again and again. That's just life, okay? This is just the cards you have been given. You, life isn't fair. We are not in heaven right now. This is like closer to hell than anything. Like this planet, this universe is like way more sadistic than the conception of being locked in a cave with like tridents rammed up your ass, but like the notion that that you love your chains, that you always have to fight for survival, that there's no release, and you're just going to get reincarnated and do it all over again. That's pretty close to hell. I get that. But what else are you going to do? What the fuck are you going to do? Are you going to give up? Stay an object? Stay a failure? At that point, you yourself are oppressing yourself way more than your environment. That's my message. Anyways, goodbye.